So let's start with today's session, guys. Very good evening, all of you. Hope you all are well. Now, quickly, we'll just take the recap of two tools, Javac tool and Java tool. And then we will start with some elementary Java programming. Because now in the last session, first Java program we have completed. Right? And I hope everything is clear to you related to first Java program. Yes or no? Clear? Okay, so first tool which we saw, that was Javac tool, called as Java compiler. Quick recap we are going to take. So the first tool is Javac tool or Java compiler. So this tool will take your Java source file. In that it will find out syntax and semantic errors. If there are, then it will tell you along with the line number the errors, and if not, then it's going to compile it into Java executable called as a bytecode. Every bytecode is called as a Java executable, right? So this Java tool reads your class and interface definitions, which is written in your Java language, and it will compile it, that is translate it into a Java executable called as a bytecode, and that bytecode is your class file. We can say this is the Javac tool or Java compiler, which takes input as your Java source file, okay, which is always with the extension .java. Name you can give any, whatever you want. The name can be anything, okay, but the extension has to be .java. Right? This tool will take your .java, check the errors. If there are syntax errors, it will tell you. No, then it will convert it into a Java executable called as a bytecode. And bytecode is like a machine code, but it is not in a native form. Means this bytecode who cannot understand directly your underlying CPU. Means it's not in a CPU understandable form. Okay, means this is the bytecode which some virtual machine can understand it. Okay, so this Javac tool takes the source code, checks for the error. No, then you'll get a bytecode called as a Java executable, and it is also a file, and that file will have an extension .class. But now from this naming, don't conclude that .class will have the same name as your .java. I hope in the last 1 or 2 sessions we are talking about that only. That this .java file name and .class name need not be every time same. Getting? So actually .class name depends on the name of your class. It doesn't depend on the name of the source file. Source file name can be different as well. Getting? And how many classes you have typed in that .java. Within that .java, if you have typed 100 classes, then in the directory you'll see 100 .class files. And every .class file name depends on the class name, not on the source file name. Getting? And generally when we get a .class file name and this source file name same, when within that file, if you are having a class with the same name, within the file you have typed one class whose name and the file name is same, so obviously you will get a .class with that name. Okay, got it. So syntax is like this: Javac and the name of your Java file. Getting? Checks for the syntax. If there are errors, it will tell you with the line number. No, then you will get a .class file, which is a bytecode file in the directory, and the name of that .class file, that is the bytecode file, is depending on the class names. Getting? All the classes which you have typed in that source file. So depending on the class name, the .class file name depends. Okay, so as many classes are there in that file, that many .class you'll get, and every .class name is same as the class name, not the source file name. Generally, when we give the source file name and the class name same, when the class is public. I hope all the rules I have told you. Can I compile more than one .java at a time? Yes, to the Java tool, Javac tool, give the names of all the .java. First file name, second file name, third file. Will it compile all these files one after another? First file it will compile, second file it will compile. And if there are errors, it will tell you the errors in all the files. And in which file there is no error, it will translate it into .class. Okay? And sometimes, if suppose there are many files which you have to repeatedly compile, so instead of giving the names of all that files here, what you can do, you can type the names of that file in one .txt. Getting? And give that txt file name preceded with @ to Java tool. Okay, that is Javac tool. Just remember, Javac tool will take the names of the files which are within this file only when you precede it with ampersand. If you don't precede with ampersand, it will treat this only as a source file, and then it will say it is an invalid source file. Okay, so now is this Javac tool going to compile file names.txt, or will it compile the files whose names are there in this txt? Getting? So within this txt, this is that file's name.txt, and in that there are list of file names. Now it will compile that each file separately, login.java, report.java, a.java. Agreed? Hope it is clear to you guys. Right? Yes or no? Then we are going to move to the second tool, that is the Java tool. Okay, Java tool is responsible to run your bytecode. Right or no? Okay, I'll go to our file which we created last time. We have created one first.java. Do you remember, all of you? In the last session, we had created one first.java. Yes or no? I had saved it in one folder. Then I created a file first.java. Then every .java will contain the code encapsulated within the class. You cannot write anything outside class. Right? So I created one class first, in that I wrote main, and in that I wrote one simple statement, hello world. Okay? Can I type many more classes? Can all the classes have main? Yes, no issues. See here, I'm creating now class second. I'm creating class third, and all classes are having main. Now it depends on, here suppose I'm writing hello world from third. Here I'm writing hello world from second. Okay, here I'm writing hello world from first. Okay, now in the last session we have discussed everything about that public, the static, that void, then what is main, what is this string, each and every detailed thing we have done. Okay, now I'll go to the terminal command prompt. I'll do cmd, enter. This is my command prompt. I'll go to the folder, d:, I'll do, and then we have created one ty2122 folder in which I have saved that file. Okay, now I'll write javac first.java, enter. It is compiled. Now in the directory you'll see how many dot class, first dot class, second dot class, third dot class. Now which class main you want to call and start with the execution? Give that class name to your Java tool, that is the second tool. So that second tool, Java tool, is responsible for translating your dot class line by line into the actual native code or machine code, and then give that machine code to the underlying processor for execution. Getting? So translating the bytecode line by line into machine code, give it to the underlying processor for execution. That is the job of this tool. Getting? That is Java tool. Now to Java tool, you have to give the name of a class, not the name of your source file. Give the name of the class in which main is present. Getting? And suppose I am giving first. That main which is public, which is static, and which is returning void, and which is taking an array of string object, that main is only the main eligible to start the execution. That is to start the life of your program. Getting? So now internally what steps happen, that too I'll tell you. The moment you write Java first, remember after that, if suppose you write second and if you write third, don't expect that the main of these two are also called. It will not happen, guys. It will not call second main and third main. Rather, second and third both are converted into string objects and then they are passed to main of first in that args square bracket. You understanding? So these two will act like a command line argument to first main. First's main will receive these two as strings. They won't be treated like class names. It is going to call main of the first class only, which you write here. Okay. Now internally what happens? See here. The moment I say Java first, it will search for, okay, it will search first dot class in directory. Correct? Now where the searching is done, that is also algorithm internally. First, currently it will search in the current folder, then in the path where you have set the class path, then no, so by default it will go into the global path, clear, where your Java libraries are there. So accordingly the searching is done. Now just remember, it will search for this dot class file. Okay, found. Just assume it is found on the directory. It will load it in the memory. And that loading is done by the class loader. And class loader is the part of this Java tool. This Java tool is internally having one sub part of it called as a class loader. Getting? So class loader loads first dot class in memory. You understanding? After loading that class in memory, there is again one more tool called signature verification. So now at this moment we'll not go into detail. Just remember, it will verify that it is a correct bytecode file. So at every dot class file at the beginning will have a signature code to identify that it's a bytecode. Getting? So it is called as a signature verification. And that signature verification is also done by one part of your Java tool. That Java tool will internally have one signature verifier also. And after that, now it will search for main, or you can say calls public static void main with string args square. And if it doesn't get calls, I wrote class calls, I wanted to say calls, which main? The main which is having void return type, which is static and which is public and which is taking an array of string. If it doesn't get this in your program, that is in your dot class, if it doesn't get this main, it will give an error, which I have shown you in the past at the time of explaining you with the first Java program. Getting? Now it will search for main. See here, Java first. So first it will search for first dot class in the directory. Yes. Class loader will bring it into the memory. Third, signature verification. And then fourth is it will search for main, which is public static void main, and it will call that main. and now the process of translation start, bytecode to machine code and all. But the flow will start from main. The entry point is main. From there it may go somewhere else, from there somewhere else, come back, and the completion will be with main only. And when main get over, it will come back to JVM, and JVM will come back to OS. Always remember there is a hierarchy. Okay, always at the bottom there is hardware. Your hardware means part of your system, CPU, your registers, memory, everything. Okay, then comes your OS. We cannot interact with the hardware directly. We have to take OS services. Above OS, who is running? Your Java virtual machine or Java runtime environment. And above that, your bytecodes. That is your dot class. Getting? So your dot class is under the control of JVM. But it is also a program which is running under control of OS, and OS is interacting with the hardware. Agreed? See here. So enter, and it will find main, and within main we have only one statement, hello world from first. After that there is no code in main. Main get over. After main over, it will again bring the control back to your Java tool. Then Java tool's control will come back to OS. Agreed? Suppose here if I write second, will it do the same process for second dot class? Yes or no, guys? Second dot class is searched in the directory. Searched in the directory, loaded, signature verify, then search for main, which is that main which I told, public static void main string args. Main found, it will start executing from main, means internally the translation will happen line by line, bytecode to machine code, then that machine code given to the underlying processor. It will run it, you'll get the output, and when main over, the control come back again to JVM and then to OS. Getting? See here. And same way if I write here third. Okay? Spelling. Will it call main of third? Got it. But this is not the case, writing Java first, second, third. Is it going to call all the mains? Is it going to call main of first, second, third?
No, sir.
What say, guys? No. Then it will call main only of
First.
first. The other two are going to play the role of
Command line argument. First.
Yes, very good. You people are hearing me. Those who sincerely attend everyday session, really it's going to benefit you. You will take the best out of it. I'm sure about it. Clear? Okay, so very good. You people are hearing me carefully. So that second and third will act like a command line argument, and it will go as an argument to first main. You can print and see that. These arguments you can print within that. Okay? So it is not like that it's going to call main of all three. Sure, no? What is the first class name? That is important. So first I have written second. So it will call main of second. Right? But still, can I indirectly call these mains in each other? Yes, you can. See here. Like suppose I am writing first main, and in that suppose I write second dot main and null I am passing, because I am not passing any argument. As I am not going to pass the array of command line arguments, so I am passing null reference. So null will come in this args, no doubt. But will it give call to main of second? And is this way a valid way? Why this is the valid way of calling main of second here by writing second dot main? Can anyone tell me if you have understood? Tell me, main is static or instance? Is main method a instance method or a static method?
Static.
As it is static, is there any need of object to invoke it?
No.
No. Am I supposed to create an object of class second
No, you
to
can.
call main? No.
We can
So can I call?
call-
You can directly call in the context of class name. Directly in the context of class name you can call.
Yes.
So I have used the class name dot main. So it will give call to this main. Within that, if suppose I write third dot main and I'm passing null, will this also do?
No, sir.
Yes.
No. Why? And yes, why? Everything is having an answer.
Second main is not working now. So
Why it is not working? See, when I'll compile and then I'll call first, means I'll give the name of first to Java utility. Will it give call to main of first? Will it run hello world from first? And will it give call to main of second?
Yes, it will be.
Then will it display hello world from second?
Yes.
And then will it give call to main of third? As I'm not passing any command line argument, I'm writing null over there. Getting? And will it display hello world from third? Clear? 100% it will work. See here, I'll compile. I'll write Java first. Okay? When I'll say Java first, will it load that first dot class in the memory? Then verification, then it will search for main, then main called, then in main the first line is hello world from first, and then you have given a call to main of second. In second there is one print statement, then you have given a call to third's main, in that there is one print statement. All print get displayed one after another. Can you see, guys? Clear? And why we could call main of second and third? Because they were static, and as they were static there was no need to create an object. Can we directly call it in the context of that class name? Because I have told you already, the methods are static, methods are instance. When you create an object and then call that method, and when you write a class name and then dot method, how do you recognize it now? First I have created an object, a ob equal to new a, and then I am writing ob.f. Then this f is which type of method? Instance method or static method?
instance.
Yes, because to invoke it, what is associated with it? To invoke it, to invoke means to call it, it is getting called in context of what? What is associated with it?
Object.
Object.
And object means instance of that class. Instance means copy of that class. So when the method is invoked in context of object, we call it as an instance method. Whereas here, tell me, I have written a dot g directly. So is g instance or static?
Static.
Why? Because it is invoked directly in whose context? Class name context. To invoke it, have we created an object?
No.
No. Directly you are calling in context of a class name. Then this is static and this is instance. Agreed, guys? Okay? So now quickly we'll talk about that tool also, the Java tool. See here. Java tool is to launch your Java application. Launch means to start executing your program. Means your application will start enjoying its life. Getting? So start enjoying its life means it will start from main, and then from main it will go somewhere, from there somewhere, come back, it can keep going on, and it will complete with main only. So to launch your application means to start executing your application, you need another program called Java. This is another tool, Java tool. And remember, this is part of your, this is the JVM part. So in every machine, if JDK is not installed, then also if you go to program files, and in that you'll see one Java folder will be there, and not in program file, very sorry, Windows folder. If you go in that, no, you'll see this utility will be already there. Means though JDK is not installed, still you'll be able to run your dot class, but you won't be able to compile and all. So that is the reason we need to install JDK as well. See here, starts Java runtime environment. Now Java runtime environment means what? That part which is responsible to do signature verification, responsible for converting bytecode to machine code line by line, responsible for memory allocation, garbage collection. All these are the jobs done by this environment. Correct? So starts your Java virtual machine, loads your class, does the signature verification, and then gives the call to main. Correct? What this is everything done by your Java tool. Okay, so see here, Java virtual machine, you call it as an interpreter. It takes your Java executable, that is your bytecode, and bytecode is your class file. Okay, is it a class file? Right? But you have to give that class file only to this tool which is having main. But now you may say, if I'm having many other classes but which are not having main, no problem. You can use it for creating objects in this class. But this class will be called as a driver class, or you can call it as a launcher class, because from there your application is going to launch. Correct? And the other classes will be called as a helper class or utility classes, because they are used for creating objects. Okay, so this Java executable, that is your bytecode, is given to this tool, that is the Java tool. What it will do? Machine code for execution. Will it translate that dot class line by line into machine code, and will it give it to the underlying hardware for execution? Clear? Underlying platform, that is, it can be a Linux platform, a Mac platform, or a Windows platform, anything. Okay, and is that underlying machine taking that machine code and converting that machine code line by that bytecode and converting it line by line to machine code, and that machine code your underlying platform is running. So when it is running, is it taking some input from you and producing some output for it? Clear? I hope you got it. See here, the tool is like this, Java and the file name. But is this the dot class name? This file name which I am giving, is it a dot class name? Right? And that class in which what is present? Main. And which main? Public static void main, which takes string args square as an argument. Agreed? See here, bytecode file containing main method. But if you give any file name in which main is not present, it will give an error. Correct? For example, see, I'm creating class X, and in that class X, simple public void foo is there, which doesn't display anything, only a message is given, system.out.println I am in foo. Okay? Now when I compile it, it will get compiled. Will it create a dot class for X also? Is it going to create a dot class for X also? Yes. In the directory you will have X dot class also. But when I will say Java X, it will search X dot class, then it will try to load it, then verification, and then it will try to call main, but it doesn't get that main which it wants as a launching main. Launching main means from where your application will start. You understanding or no? In X, it should get which main? Public static void main. But it doesn't get, and it will give an error. See, main method not found in class X. Which main method? Public static void main, and which takes an array of string objects. Got it? But why it didn't give error for first? Because first was having that main. Getting? Now you may ask, like, then is there this class X? Is it that this class X is of no use? Is it a useless class? No. You can use it as a utility class. Can you use this class for creating objects in another class? So here, can I create an object of class X? Tell me, X small x equal to new capital X. Can I do like this?
Yes, sir.
Clear? So is this small x a reference variable? Because in Java, object means only reference variable. So this is your stack and this is your heap. Here one variable x is there, which is only object. In this reference has not come. Then when you wrote new x, so it will allocate memory on heap as much is needed for that x class. That x class copy. So it's going to create a copy of x class. You understanding? That copy is created on the heap. Its reference is returned, which is stored in this small x. Agreed? And now when I write small x dot foo, will it do? And will it give call to this foo, which is in class x? Do you agree with me, all of you?
Yes.
Clear? The same thing when you'll create your big projects. So obviously for each thing you'll create a separate class. Like you're creating an inventory system. So maybe you're creating one class for bill, one class for invoice, one class for supplier, one class for customer, one class for product. Clear? And then you will create one class called as class main, in which you'll have main, and from there you'll create the objects of all these other classes. Means that all other classes are helper classes, and there will be one driver class in which main will be there, from where everything will be launched, everything will start the journey. Clear? See here. Now if I run this program, first I'll compile it. I'm running it, okay, and I'm writing first. Then you know first main, in that second main, in that third main, and in third main we have created an object of x, and then we have given call to foo. So is it displaying I am in foo also? Okay? Lot many things to learn. Huh? There are so many things we'll be learning. So till here I hope it is clear. Okay? Yes guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good, 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 very good. Now we will move to some more programming concepts. But before that, I'm just going to give you an homework. What you have to do is just find some time, half an hour, okay, and try to recall everything of first Java program. Okay, try to just recall that what all things are there for first Java program. Like every Java program is to be saved with a file name any, but with the extension .java. Then any code you write in Java is to be put within a class only. Then class can have data, method. Data can be static instance, method can be static instance. What is the difference between it? Then talk about main. What is main? Why? What is that void? What is that static? What is that public? Then what that string args is. Then try to explain about system.out.println. So println is a method of printstream class. And then we have an object of class printstream called out, which is a member of system class, but it's a static member. Getting? So try to reproduce everything what I told in past 1 or 2 sessions. And systematically you write it in one paper and try to share it with me. Getting? Okay, I'll be happy to see, and from that I'll come to know, okay, how you people can reproduce. From this your understanding is also clear. I'll come to know really you have understood that whole first Java program. Okay, then in that only if you want to tell about in short about Java tool, Java tool, you can mention. Okay, so you'll do that for me. Yes,
Yes, sir.
any confirmation?
Yes,
Sure.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good, good. Many are saying yes. Good. So I'm waiting for that. Okay. It's not like that immediately tomorrow only, whenever you get time. But please share it. If you share it on the group, also will do. Let others also see it. Maybe by seeing your explanation properly, some others may get ashamed of themselves and they also may try to reproduce it. Okay. So try to put it in proper point wise. It will be really helpful for you, which will be not only from, not for exam, because you know exams are MCQ based. So that is not a big task. Getting the task is to face interviews, big corporates. My goal is that you all enter into good corporates where you will represent me. Yes or no? Going ahead. Now we will start with the elementary. Now the basics of programming are starting of Java. We are going to see what do you mean by lexical tokens. Okay. Now lexical means the piece of text. Normally when you type some program, so the pieces of that text are called as lexical units. Lexemes, we call it as lexemes. So that piece of text is actually a lexeme. And when that pieces of text are put into the categories, then they become tokens. Like in your whole program, you have created pieces of text, but some are put into one category called keywords. Some are put into category called operators. Some are put into category called identifiers or variable. So the categorization you do, and that categories are called as tokens. Okay, and they are the building blocks of your program. Means you will construct your program using these lexical tokens. Getting? So lexical tokens act like a building block. When construction is to be done, a house is to be constructed. So the basic building blocks, the elements for constructing house, we need cement, we need bricks, we need steel. So using that only big house is constructed. Right or no, guys? So same way for constructing your program, these tokens will act like a building block. Remember, tokens are categories. And in that category, those who belong, they are called as lexemes. So in very simple term, you remember lexical tokens means the smallest indivisible part of your program. Okay, atomic part. Atomic means, you know, atom means which we cannot divide. So atomic part or the smallest indivisible part, okay, or the smallest piece of text. Text means your program, and the smallest piece of the text is called as a lexical token. And these tokens act like a building block for constructing bigger program. But are these tokens arranged in any way, or for arranging some grammar is to be followed, which the language designer has prescribed? Yes, every language designer has given some set of rules called as grammar. As like in English, in Hindi, Marathi, everywhere the grammar was taught. That is the different thing, that we didn't understood the grammar that perfectly. Getting? And that's the reason we used to do a lot of mistakes. Okay. The same way in programming also there is a grammar. That is the set of rule. And using that rule, we have to arrange these tokens. Clear? Like a very simple example, if I write area equal to then 3.14 into R and again into R, and then I'm putting a semicolon. So here this area is one piece of text. This is one indivisible part, atomic part. This equal is one piece of text. This 3.14. Getting? These are the lexemes. Lexemes means the piece of text. And then these piece of text are put into their category. That is called as a tokens. Like area, this R, they both are put into one category called identifier. Getting? This star, this equal, they are put into one category called operators. This semicolon is put into delimiters. This 3.14 is put into constants. So they are put into their categories, and that categories are called as tokens. Okay. And have we arranged them in any way? Like I have written A, B plus. Clear? Though they are also three tokens, token 1, token 2, token 3. But they are not arranged using the grammar. Getting? And therefore, compiler is going to generate an error. Though there are three tokens, tokens with three lexical units, piece of text, but they are not following the grammar. So grammar also is to be followed. Okay, so see, they are the smallest programming elements, and they act as a building block for constructing more complex things, complex constructs. Okay, who all come under lexical tokens? Identifiers, we will be discussing about it. Literals, that is the constant values. Then operators. Then special symbol, which we also call it as punctuations and all. Okay, then keywords. Okay, so all these are tokens. So tell me area, radius, age, name. They are the examples of identifiers. 35, 1.2, getting 3.14. These are the constant value. Plus, minus, plus, plus, minus, minus. They are the operators. Special symbols like comma, single quote, double quote, semicolon. Keywords like int, float. Clear? So all these are the lexims, and they all belong to these categories, and that categories are called as lexical tokens. Agreed, guys? Okay? And are they arranged using some grammar to form the bigger construct? Yes, correct. So they are used to build high level constructs. Like we'll build expressions, then from expressions statements, from statement methods, from methods classes. This may go on, no? Getting on, no? So all these things will use first to build expressions. From that expressions will make statement. Many statements will form a method. Many methods are put into a class. So this way big constructs are built from these things. Okay. Now all these lexical tokens we have to discuss one by one. So in that, the first one we are going to discuss, that is identifiers. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Identifiers. Now what are identifiers? Right? Like you people are given some meaningful names by your parents, isn't it? Abhishek, and then Abhijit, and Sanket, and Vrushabh, and Kshitija, and all are your names. Like Pratik is absent, I guess, today. Clear? So all are your names, and you people are identified with that name, isn't it, guys? So you are being recognized with that name. Same way, in your program there are many programming elements, and you have to identify those programming elements. So you will identify it by giving some name, and that is called identifier. So identifiers are name given to the program elements. Like, okay, the first one is variable. Okay, variable. Now some basic idea about variable you have. Is variable some placeholder in the memory? Means this is your memory, and in that memory some locations are reserved. Do you agree, guys? And after reserving the location, some meaningful name you give. Here the value is stored, whatever, 35, 100, whatever. But after reserving that memory location, computer will identify it with the address. Computer internally will identify by address. But you people for you people it's difficult to identify with the address. So you will identify with some meaningful name. So this is the identifier. This is the name given to that variable. Getting? Same way, name given to your methods. You write methods. So see, this foo is the identifier. This main is the name of the method. Foo is the name of the method. Name given to the class. How do you identify that class? Because when you create an object of that class, copy of that class, do we use the name of it? So the third, X, first, second, that is the name of the class. Getting? Same way, name given to your package. Okay, name given to the constants and literals, little bit different. I'll tell you what it is. So name given to the constants, labels are also allowed in Python. So labels, constant, package, class, method, variable, to all this, whatever meaningful name you give, that is called identifier. Right guys? Okay? And all identifier names should follow identifier naming rule. And that naming rule, obviously, who has decided? The language designer. Those who designed the language, they have also decided the naming rule. And programmer also has to follow that naming rule. Means when the programmer is writing the program, programmer has to follow the naming rule. And if you don't follow, compiler is there to check it. Like in school days, we were taught with the grammar. So we were supposed to follow the grammar and write our essays and comprehensions and whatever. But if we fail to follow it, so our teacher was there to check it. Yes or no? Is the teacher knowing the grammar, and is the teacher going to use that grammar rule to check what you have written is right or no?
Yes.
Clear? Same thing. Here the role of teacher is compiler. Getting? And you people, programmer. Programmer also should know the grammar rule, and the compiler also should know the grammar rule. Because compiler has to check it whether you have done it properly or not. Getting? And you as a good coder, you will also follow it while typing. But if you fail to, then who is there to check it? Compiler is there. Okay? So always you have to follow the identifier naming rule. Now what are that identifier naming rules? That also I'll tell you. But before that, we will just talk about what is identifier. So I hope you have understood it. Okay, it is a name given to program elements. What are that different program elements? Human created elements, programmer created. Package, when you create your own package, you have to give the name to the package. Class or interface, when you create an interface or a class, you have to give the name to it. Then methods, then variables and constants, clear? Labels. To all this, you have to give some meaningful name. And that name is only called as identifier. So with that name only you will recognize the package. With that name you will recognize that class. You understanding guys? Okay. I hope the concept of identifier is clear.
Yes, sir.
Then, are these identifiers supposed to follow the naming rule? Is the naming rule programmer created, or are the naming rules decided by the language designer? Whoever designed the language, they have decided it. And you people have to follow that rule. And who also has to check this rule? Compiler. Compiler also will check it, whether you people have followed it right or not. Getting? Remember, these are the naming rules. And there is some concept called Sun recommendation. Now, Sun recommendation means what? That I'll talk later. Now, just remember what these naming rules are. Okay. So, first is, they say your identifier can be a combination of letters, digits, underscore, and currency sign also. Now currency sign, normally dollar, because maximum books say currency sign dollar, because dollar is only the currency sign which you can directly type from the keyboard. But there are other currency signs also, pound, yen and all, that are also allowed, but we are not able to directly type it from the keyboard. Getting? Then you'll say, then why they have allowed? So you can use its Unicode. Like we have ASCII code, there is a concept called Unicode. I'll come to Unicode concept means what. Okay, Unicode means universal code. Because if you remember the history of Java, which I told, after 1993 www started coming into usage. Then these Sun people thought of using Java to make web interactive, and they came with the concept of applet. And from there onward, Java became a language of internet, and internet is an interconnection of heterogeneous machines. all the machines in the globe which are connected with internet need not be of the same type. Some are Japanese interface, some are Hebrew interface, some are Arabic interface. So all the characters should be involved. No? So they came with the concept of Unicode, correct? In which all the characters of the universe are included. Okay, so you can use their Unicodes if you're not able to type it from the keyboard. Okay, so I'll come to it, don't worry. But what all possibilities are allowed? Letters. And the speciality in these letters is also that not only A to Z, uppercase A to Z, lowercase A to Z, in letters, understanding guys, Latin letters are also allowed, like alpha, beta, then gamma, or A with an accent on it. You might have seen like this, a dot above it. You understanding? Like this accent, we call it as above that. You might have seen it, like A, and then there is a dot above it and all. So these are some Latin letters, and alpha, beta and all. So these are also allowed in a letter set. Whereas C, C++ and all will allow only A to Z. But Java allows you. So letters, digit, underscore, currency sign, combination of this is allowed. But first place digit not allowed. I cannot start with digit. That is the important point. Okay. Then case sensitive. It is case sensitive. Meaning if I write age, age and age, all three are spelled same. But one is lowercase, this is title case, this is uppercase. All three are different according to Java. Java will treat them differently. Huh? Okay, so it is case sensitive. Fourth, no limit on length. Getting? There is no limit. Like in C, very first C came, it was 8, then they came with an ANSI C which was 32. Now after C99 standard, in C also there is no limit. In C also there is no limit on identifier. Okay, after C99 standard, right? But in Java, initially only they don't have any limit. So no limit on length of the identifier. And the last point you have to remember, that reserve or keywords not allowed. Means you cannot create a variable with the reserve word. Like I'm writing integer for equal to 45. Is it wrong? Yes, because for cannot be the name of my variable, because for is reserve word. Getting? Or I'm trying to define my function. I'm defining one method, public void and while I'm writing. Is it a legal name? No, because while is a reserve word and you cannot use it as a name of your method. You cannot use for as a name of your variable. It is wrong. It's not allowed. Clear? Okay, I hope you got it. So everything other than these 5 rules is not allowed. Getting? Is it clear to you? So every identifier is combination of letters, digits, clear? Combination of letters, digits, underscore, currency sign.
Sir,
Okay.
fourth point, the identifier can be up to 1024 characters long, na?
No. Clear? Nothing. Don't try to Google and tell me anything. Clear? Okay. There is no limit, but actually you don't create only variable of that type. Okay. Identifier in some languages are 8 length, 32 length. Okay. But actually there is no limit. But when there is no limit, so are you going to write a variable with the name of 500 characters or 2000 characters? Ideally you won't do it. Yes or no? Are you going to create a variable? For example, you want to create a variable for salary. So you are going to write like my underscore first underscore 2021 underscore month underscore Jan underscore salary. Such big name you are not going to create. Small and meaningful. But Java doesn't have any limit on the length. Getting? So don't confuse with it.
Yes, sir.
That may be the rule in some other cases, like in SQL or something. Okay. Java says there is no limit on length. And whenever you want to read good books of Java, read certification books. Getting? Don't, I'm not doing a negative marketing or positive marketing, or I'm not a affiliate marketer of certification books and all. But there are good books of certification like Khalid Mughal, Katie Sierra and all. Read those books because they are the authentic certification books. Getting? Which are recommended for some certifications. So read those, you'll come to know the correct rule. Okay. So Java says there is no limit. But okay, if there is no limit, are you going to create a variable with such huge length? No, you'll create a meaningful name, short name. Short and meaningful. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so first of all, you got to know any sequence of characters. What all characters? Letters, digits, underscore, and currency symbol. But see, a currency symbol, these all, pound, yen and all, they are also allowed, euro and all. But you will say that how to type these symbols. Where dollar, okay, but what about this? To represent them in their Unicode form. I'm coming to that. Okay, I'll give an example of it. It will be more clear to you guys. Then, first character in an identifier cannot be digit. In short, your identifier cannot start with digit. All the identifiers are case sensitive. Uppercase, lowercase matters. You cannot use reserve word. I hope you got it. And no limit on length. Clear? There's no rule that it should be of 30 length, 40 length or 1024 length. Nothing like that. But as I said, you are not going to create only a variable with that huge length. Okay. Coming to some examples of legal identifier. Okay. See a few legal identifier. Number. Valid. NUMBR. Is it following the rule? These 5 rules? Yes, because these all characters are from this. Then it is not starting with digit. Then lowercase is okay. It's not a reserve word. Length limit. NUMBR. N capital is legal. Sum underscore dollar. Is dollar allowed? Currency sign is allowed? Yes. Bingo is valid. Dollar underscore 100 is valid. MAL, but can you see that A is a Latin A? Getting? Like this. MAL, but that L is a Latin A. So now you'll say, if suppose I want to use this A in my program to a variable name, you have to use its Unicode. And Unicode is written like this, \U and 4-digit hexadecimal. Hexadecimal numbers means what? They are, you know it. It is a base 16 number. Base 16 number means 0 to 9 and A to F. Total 16. 0 to 9 and 10 becomes A, 11 becomes B, 15 becomes F. So here 4-digit hexadecimal preceding with \U. That you have to write over here. You understanding? Clear? So if you use that Unicode in place of it, it will treat that Latin A only. Okay, so I'll show you that too, don't worry. But this is a legal identifier. Now tell me, GRU, G-R-U in that Latin, and then B is that beta B. Can you see that B is in a beta form? Understanding? Okay.
Yes.
Hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Now coming to, but such identifiers not legal in C and all. Okay, they don't allow you. Even Python also doesn't allow. So U, two dot, and then that beta, all are allowed. Now illegal identifier, 48 CHEVY. Obviously not valid because it's starting with 48. All at the rate hands. At the rate is a special symbol which doesn't come in this category, this 4 category. Getting? Now I wrote here letters, but I have, while explaining, I have clarified. Letters means not only A to Z, upper, lower. Latin letters also they consider. Getting or no? So that's what here you can see, that Latin A, Latin U, that alpha, beta, gamma, that is also allowed. Grand dash sum. Is it a valid identifier? No. That minus sign has come, which is not allowed. But can we consider it as a valid expression made up of two identifiers, grand and sum, and you are subtracting the two values by using a minus sign? Can I call it as a valid expression? What do you say, guys?
Yes, it is valid expression.
Expression. Clear? It's a valid expression. But if I consider that whole thing as an identifier, it is not. Clear? Okay. Now I'll come to the concept how to use that such letters. So actually I don't know the Latin A, but what we can do is some other thing we can try. See here, what I'm doing is in this foo, I'm creating one character variable, char, and I'm giving the name to the variable as ABC. The name of the variable is capital ABC. Okay, but that B I am not writing as B. Instead I am writing \U0042 equal to, and I'm then storing Z in it. Getting? You may think like it is looking something cryptic and all, but it is 100% valid according to Python. So actually what is the name of my variable? Can anyone tell me? Now just remember, 42 is the hexadecimal of 42 is the hexadecimal of capital B's Unicode. Okay. Remember, in Unicode your normal ASCII characters also come. Okay. 0 to 127 will be your normal ASCII characters, like in which 0 to 9, A to F, small a to F, some special symbols. Then 128 to 255. What will come? All the extended ASCII chart. And from 256 onwards till 65535. Okay, which is approximately 64K. Approximately 64K, and 1K means 1024. So 1024 into 64 if you do, you'll get this thing. Now 64K means 64,000. Getting? Characters will fit all the characters from the globe. Getting? So till 255 it was your normal ASCII, and from there onwards all the other characters of the globe will come. Getting? Other characters of the globe, meaning the Joheb characters, the Arabic characters, the Hebrew characters, all characters of the globe are involved in this. You're getting? And it is represented in a hexadecimal form, as I said. Okay, \U and 4-digit hexadecimal. This last value is there. It is represented as F, 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 F. You can do and see. The last value's hexadecimal will be this only. And the first value hexadecimal will be 0000. This first 0 in hexadecimal. And the last value in hexadecimal is FFFF. Agreed? So in this whole chart, will capital B also come? Yes. And capital B's value is 66. Capital A value is 65. But when you will write that 65 in hexadecimal, it will be \U0041. Do and see. 16 power value, no? This is 16 power 0. This is 16 power 1. Getting? Can you tell me, is 16 power 1 into 4 64 and plus 1 65? Yes or no? Right, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So same way if I write 4 2. So 16 raised to 1 is 16. 16 into 4 is 64 and plus 2. Why 2? Because 16 raised to 0 is 1 only. No? The 1 into 2, 2. And this is 64. So 64 plus 2 is 66. 66 is B. Clear? So time being I have taken such Unicodes which I know. You can even Google and see for that Latin A. Getting? You'll get it. For that Latin A, you'll get it. Like it may be like backslash U 20 B8 or B2, whatever. Okay. So is the variable with the name what created? Actually, the variable with what name is created? Can anyone tell me?
What,
Means
sir?
can I say a variable with the name ABC is created? In reality, the variable with the name what is created?
Yes,
ABC.
that you.
No. The variable with the name what is created? ABC. But that B, when I gave the name, no, when I gave the name of the variable, I didn't wrote B. I wrote its Unicode. Tell me, guys. A backslash U0042 is the Unicode of which letter?
B.
Just now I told.
B.
Is it
Capital.
Unicode? Yes, very good. It is the Unicode of capital B. You understanding?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes.
So it is the Unicode of capital B. But what happened is I didn't wrote direct capital B. Instead I wrote its Unicode. Therefore, when I'm trying to print, if I write ABC, still is it going to display Z only?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Because actually the variable with what name is created?
ABC.
only. Okay, so this was just an example, but when we have to use such policy, actually here it was meaningless because you were able to type capital B also through your keyboard. Through your keyboard, can you type capital B? Yes, but still I used this technique. Getting? Which technique? Backslash U0042. But backslash U0042 is actually the code of capital B only. So now below that I am writing ABC. Will it display Z? Because Z is only stored in that variable. What is stored in that variable? Z. So when you are
Z.
trying to print the value, will it display Z? Yes. See, guys.
Yes.
Keep doing it. Languages are all hands-on. Means as much typing and compiling and running you'll do, you will be more and more expert. Getting? Is it printing Z? Got it. So is this policy, when to apply actually? When to use all these things? Can anyone tell me? Generally it is beneficial when to follow such principle. Backslash U, such
when
Unicode.
we cannot type any.
Exactly. Very good. Very good. You have understood the
Shortcut.
concept. Clear? You got the concept. Like such characters which are legal. They are legal according to the rule. According to the rule which I gave here. According to the rule, it is a legal character. Like this currency signs, pound, yen and all. Dollar we can type. But this we cannot. Or some Latin letters like alpha, beta or that A with a accent on it. So such letters which are allowed, but through my keyboard I am not able to type. So Java says you can put in place of that their Unicodes. You got it or no?
Yes,
Clear?
sir.
Yes, very good.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, तो that is the concept. Now see here, you can use Unicode anywhere. That is the rule of Java. Like if this is small a, and instead of small a, if I write \u0061, now obviously 61 is the Unicode of, when I wrote means you should immediately tell, you should not think also. Getting? Because when I'm typing means I'm already knowing it, means I'm typing it correct. Okay, so 61 is the Unicode of
Small a.
006. Exactly, small a. It is 16 raised to 0, 16 raised to 1. So 16 raised to 1 is 16, into 6 is 96, plus 1 97. And I hope you know 97 is the code of small a, like 65 is the code of capital A. So if I write ch \u0061r, still will it compile and still will it take it as char only, char? What say, guys? Instead of this C, if I type here \u0063 \u0063 h \u0061r, still compiler is going to treat it as char, char.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, clear. That is the speciality of this language. Correct? See, you compile it. Is it complaining? No. Is it still printing Z?
Yes.
Means, has it considered this whole thing as which word? It looks like a cryptic thing, crypted code. But in reality, compiler is treating this whole thing as what?
Character. Yeah.
Char, C, then H, then A, and then R. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
You got it. Clear? So here I was knowing the Unicode of capital B, I used it. I was not knowing the Unicode of that alpha beta, therefore I didn't wrote. Getting? But if you want, you can use that too. Okay? So the concept, I hope, is clear. Right? So let's move on to the next thing. Everywhere I'll show you somewhere the trace output questions, because my intention is you people appear for certifications. Getting? Try to clear your Sun certifications. If you are keen to Java language, if you are keen to Python, search for Python certification. Certifications add in your biodata. Clear? Because nowadays corporate expect not the big degrees, they expect certifications. If you are certified with the official certifications, it adds in your weightage in your biodata. Clear? In your resume. Coming to keywords. Now keywords are reserved words of the language. Getting? Is natural language also having some reserved word? Natural language means language spoken by human. Getting? So humans speak English, Hindi, Marathi. All these are the languages which we speak. In our language also there are some reserved words. Do you agree or no? Getting? Like in English also there are some reserved words. There are some articles, there are some verbs. So article a and the, they are reserved word. Yes or no? Like verbs are there, run, go, sleep, eat.
Yes.
So these are the reserved word. And are they to be used for that purpose only? Is it having its designated purpose? Is it having its pre-decided meaning?
Yes.
Is it having its intrinsic meaning? Yes. And you have to use it for that purpose only. You cannot use it for any other purpose. The keywords are the same thing. In programming language also, keywords are the reserved words of the language. They have their pre-decided meaning. They have their implicit meaning. And you have to use it for that pre-decided purpose. You cannot use it for any other purpose. Getting? So if we are using word while for a loop, I have to use it for loop only. I cannot use it for a variable. Getting? Like in English, nouns are allowed to be used anywhere because nouns are not a reserved word. Are nouns human created? Yes, they are human created. Like in India, the nouns are different because our Indian culture is having different naming concept. Getting? whereas the Western naming concept is different. So their nouns are different, our noun set is different, right? So we cannot complain on that because they are human created. Example you take like June. June. So June is the name of a month and June is the name of a girl also. No problem. Because June is not a which word, reserve word. It's a noun. Okay. So same in programming also. So identifiers, what are there? No? Variable names. Variable names which you create using that 5 rules. That you can use any. No problem. Okay. So keywords are reserve words and you have to use it for that purpose only. So reserve words, keywords are the reserve words that are predefined in the language. Getting? Are they decided by the language designer? Yes. And it is fixed. Is that set static? Is that set fixed? Yes. Maybe in the next versions of Java language, some more keywords might have got added. They have added, like in Java 7 and all, some more keywords have come. Okay. In the later versions, they have added some keywords like where and all, which was not in the older versions. Okay. So they are the reserve words. Keywords are the reserve word. They have their pre-decided meaning and you have to use it for that purpose. See, they have their implicit meaning. It is told already by the designer that if is to be used for that condition checking. Okay, while is used for that looping. Int is to tell the data type. Float is used to tell the data type. So these are the reserve word. They have meaning and they cannot be used to denote any other entity. Means that int word I cannot use for a variable. Int word I cannot use it for a function. Right? All are strictly in lowercase. That is the speciality of Java. That each and every keyword is in lowercase. Getting? And these keywords you cannot use it for identifier, which you have already told at the time of identifier that identifiers cannot be keywords. Okay, this set I have given. You can try to find out how many are there. Getting? And in the later version, like after Java 1.7 and all, some more are added. But your course is recommending till 1.5. Like if you're learning till 1.5 is also sufficient, they are saying. Okay. Okay. Tell me in this how many you are identifying. No? Quickly you should be able to count.
47.
How many are there?
47.
Sure?
Yeah, 6 and 7. Yes, 47.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These are 49 and 2 less, we can say 47. And there are 3 more. There are 3 more which I have not shown here. One is null, true and false. Okay, so if I add that 3 in this 47, yes, so how much?
50.
Okay, and then few more are there which are added in the later version that we'll see later. Okay, alphabetically if you go, many are there, like abstract. Abstract is equivalent to virtual of C++, but now many don't know C++ already, so leave it. Getting? But then boolean, in C++ there is bool, here it is boolean. Break, you know. Byte is a new thing in Java. Case you already know. Catch is there in C++. Char, class, const. Getting? Then continue. Then default, do, double, else. These are known. Extend is a new thing. It will be used at the time of inheritance. Means when you want to derive one class from another, use extend. final is a new thing, finally is a new thing. Okay, then float, for, go to, if, you know. Implements is a new thing, import, instance of, these are all new things. Int is already known, interface is a new thing, long is already known, native is new thing, new is already there in C++, package is new, private, protected, public is already there in C++, return, short, static, already there. Super is a new thing, synchronized is a new thing, switch is coming from C++, this is also coming from C++, throw is coming from C++, throws is new in Java. Okay, transient is new in Java, but try, void, volatile, while, all are coming from C++. Okay, right? Okay, so I have listed few. Now actually you don't know C++, therefore I cannot ask also, like if I want to compare it. So the keywords which are specially in Java only, they have not come from C++. I mean, they are not copied from C++. They are specially the keywords of Java only. So you can say this thing, extends, final, okay, package, implements, interface. These are specially synchronized. These are all Java keyword. They are not carried from which language? C++. And the keywords which are carried from C++, these are all like private, protected, public, then break, continue, double, int, all are carried from C++. And sometimes in interview they ask like the keywords of C++ but not carried in Java, means they have not continued in Java. So many are there, like inline is there, friend is there, friend, inline. Okay, so all such keywords of C++ they have not carried here, getting in this language, right? Okay, so the keywords, I hope you got it. And there are some reserved literals which are keywords also, but they have value also, and that's the reason they're called literal. Literals means those which have some constant value. Okay, so there are some literals which are having value also and they are reserved also. So three are there in it. Two are for boolean, that is true and false, and one is for the reference, means to tell that it is not referring anywhere. You'll put this null. Null, null, small only. Null is there in PHP also, but there anyhow you can write complete capital, N capital, ULL small, complete small. No, here you have to write this only. But null represents some value. True and false also represent some value. So they are having some value also, but they are reserved also. That's the reason they are called reserved literal. Getting? And there are some keywords which are not used in Java, but Java still keep it as reserve. They are not in use. Okay, so which are they? Constant and goto. Means you cannot use goto for that goto purpose, which was in case of C and C++. Like in C and C++, if I write goto and some label, and then A is a label where some code is there, so it was allowed. So goto used to take the control to that label A and then run it. So you cannot use such flow transfer from where to where, from one point to another, using goto in Java. But still Java has kept this word as reserved. You understanding? What Java is saying, you cannot use goto for goto purpose. What is the purpose of that goto? You cannot use it. But then you may say, if it is not used, so can I use it for some variable making, like integer goto equal to 10? Because you may say, like, as you are only saying कि goto cannot be used for that goto purpose. Goto purpose means transfer somewhere. So you cannot use goto for that transfer purpose, but still you cannot use it for anything else also, because Java has kept it still reserved. So all this are asked in MCQs also, even in your basic certification exams also. So these are the reserved word, but they are not in use. Getting? And same is the case for const. In C, we create const for such variable whose value you don't want to change. Getting? Like in C, int const I equal to 10 if you write. So once I is initialized to 10, can I modify it to 20? No, because you have declared it as const. Now Java says in place of const there is another word called final. So like const, Java has given a concept called final. So then you may say, then can I use const for anything else? Like, means can I create a function const? Getting? Means can I create a function with the name const? No, because still it has kept it reserved only. Means Java says still that word is reserved, though you cannot use it for that purpose. Whatever its purpose was, we cannot use it, but it is still keeping it as reserve. And those are the two words. One is goto and another is const. See here, reserve keywords not currently in use. Means you are not using const for const purpose, goto for goto purpose. So though we are not using that both for their purpose, then also Java has kept it as reserve word. Okay. So hope that part is clear to you guys. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Now in the next session, we'll be learning some more things like comments, then literals, then we'll start with operators. No, before that, data types, all one by one we'll discuss. Okay? Okay. So for today, we'll stop all of you.